if you found the last track breakdown I did useful, so I thought I'd make another one. This one's a track I made called Noble Hero. It's kind of an epic, heroic, but somewhat regal sounding track. Even though this track was made in Ableton, you can apply the same principles across any music software, really. If you're wanting to learn to make a track like this, then hopefully the same instrument structure, choices, and arrangement ideas might help you out in your future tracks. So we'll hop on over into Ableton and I'll talk you through this track. The idea behind this track starting it was I wanted something with a clear solo instrument as the lead. For this one, I wanted something more kind of intimate for the lead instrument while still maintaining some of the big elements in the background, like the brass and all. This is what I actually started with, was this violin melody. Even though I wanted it to be a solo violin in the forefront, I ended up layering it with the Stradivari violin from Native Instruments. At least that's where I got it anyway. This one here. And the two of them together sound like this. And from there, I just kind of build it out at a kind of short string section here, and it sounds like this. Pretty simple, but it adds an extra layer that builds onto the large sound of the track. And then some horn stabs like these, just to give a bit of punch to each beat. And an 808, which I find works quite well with orchestral music, provided you, if I go in here, sidechain it to your main hits, or sometimes if the 808's too in the forefront, you can EQ it and cut out all the high frequencies down and only allow through maybe the sub frequencies, and it gives it that extra layer underneath that you feel it rather than it being like in the forefront. And then when I combine that with the kick I used, each layer on its own is quite simple, but when you combine them together, they add and create something large sounding. And the brass, the big one. The French horns from East West Opus sound really big. I love adding them to every track, and I combine them with the brass ensemble from Native Instruments for a lot of tracks. I know, I really like them. And then combine those French horns with low brass from East West as well, the brass ensemble from Native Instruments, and some strings on top of that. You get this sound. And I combined it with a couple of synth sounds as well to kind of add to the large feeling of it. And them together sound like this. I have an LFO on this synth, kind of adjusting the gain. So if I solo this one and take off the rest, you'll see it moves up and down. Yeah, with that LFO, and I used a square pattern, a 1/2 beat rate, and it basically every half beat brings the gain up and down. It kind of gives it a pulse to the track. The other synth is this. It's just kind of a high pitch layer to fill it out a bit. That instrument sound is from a Kontakt library called Devastator Warzone here. From Keep Forest is where I got that. It's got a lot of like really large sounds, Brahms, trailer hits. I use it all the time. A piano, just kind of layering the main melody. And then up the top, the percussion, the trailer hits. I try now to keep these spread out a bit. In the past, I used too many trailer hits, and they got kind of fatiguing on the ear when they hit every second or two. Sometimes it's good to keep them a bit spread out and use your kind of thinner percussion in between the big hits. but until you get to the end, maybe you might want to do it at the end. Sometimes you want to add in the extra intensity, and that's where you bring in the multiple big hits and it builds to the climax. As far as arrangement goes, I'll unsolo this. I start out small. Just playing a small section, repeating a small section of the main melody bit by bit. Bringing in the 808. My philosophy with most tracks is to kind of build and build until as big an ending as I can possibly make. And sometimes, like here, the section before the ending, I'll bring it back a bit just so the ending hits even harder when it comes in. And the kick, that's from Keep Forest as well, I think. It just adds a driving force. It's almost an electronic type kick rather than trailer percussion. But if they sound good, combine them. Why not with hybrid music? And it pretty much builds and builds from here, bringing new things in until you get to this section where I bring everything back a bit, and then that leads into the big ending. For the ending, I added a stinger, which if you're going the sync licensing route is very important. You always want to kind of end on the root. The important thing about it is to end on a root note and make it feel like a final punch to the track, kind of. Because say, for example, if I come back here and this section here, when I get to the end of it, if an editor doesn't want to use the big ending and they just want to use this section here, they can simply chop off the root note punch ending and connect it with this, and they'll have an out for the track, kind of a way to get out of it without just a normal fade or having to use the ending. Boom. You know what I mean. For the big finale, the brass obviously comes in, and I also added a load more layers to the strings, but the solo violin still sounds kind of forefront. So that's pretty much the breakdown of my track Noble Hero. You can see that adding like loads of simple layers together can create quite a large sound. There is another approach that you could take as well, which sometimes I do in other tracks, which is to focus on creating one sound that sounds massive by itself, but that's a whole other video. For this one, I decided to use layers to build it up and kind of support that solo violin instrument. Overall, I'm really happy with how this track turned out. I think I got quite a large sound with using an intimate kind of instrument for the lead. Anyways, I hope you learned something of value from this, and if you enjoyed the video, hit like and subscribe for more, and I hope to see you again.